It's been a while since I've uploaded Godzilla content, so I've decided to return to it. This is my Godzilla movie tier list, and it's just my opinion, so feel free to disagree with me. Or just saying this is in chronological order. 1954 Godzilla, instant S tier. The tone was incredibly dark, it was very depressing, the plot was good, and the cinematography was also very good. Godzilla being viewed from a human perspective. So it's pretty solid. Next is Godzilla Returns, I believe, 1955. As the first on-scene kaiju fighting movie, it was good. I mean, the tone was a lot lighter than 1954's, but it was still darker than, it is still darker than most of the recent Monsterverse films. The plot was, I'd say, okay, and the cinematography, so although sometimes it's viewed from Godzilla perspective, most of the time I believe it's viewed from a human perspective. Godzilla vs. Kong. This is when it started getting goofy. I'll put this movie in B tier, but solely because of how light the tone was. In many scenes, you see Godzilla dancing and stuff. You don't see that elsewhere in these films. Godzilla vs. Mothra. Again, the tone is much lighter. Showa Godzilla movies, they're very unique. They transform Godzilla, well, except for this film and maybe this film. The rest of the Showa Godzilla movies, they transform this horrifying monster, this icon of nuclear destruction. He gets transformed into sort of this cartoonish character. So they're a very unique feel. Yes. Now, I believe this is Invasion of the Astro Monster. These Ghidorah films, they're roughly the same. I'll place them A tier. Actually, I'll place Mothra A tier. The real reason why I placed Kong down here is because I'm kind of biased. I really dislike the fact that Kong won, although I do understand that it's due to business purposes. So most of these show films are Sea Monster. So this is a B tier. Son of Godzilla. It's also a B tier. Destroy All Monsters, S tier. This was one of the only Godzilla films with incredibly good action. The action in this film, Destroy All Monsters, was absolutely phenomenal. Now, it's a film with Gabara in it. It isn't centered around Godzilla. It's more so towards Manila. Yeah, this is very good.
What's that? What's that, brother?
Godzilla vs. Ghidorah. This was also pretty dark, and I really enjoyed it. Godzilla vs. Gigan. Another A tier for me. The action was very good. Godzilla vs. Megalon. The budget was pretty low, and it was incredibly goofy, with Megalon dancing and stuff. Mechagodzilla. Oh yes, I really enjoyed this film. I like how Mechagodzilla broke Anguirus' jaw, blood running down Anguirus' neck. Yeah, that was very good. The second Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Personally, I think it's slightly worse, because the fact that those Titanosaurs teamed up with Mechagodzilla required assistance to defeat Godzilla. So kind of, made him look weaker. And also, Titanosaurus in this film was an absolute wimp. Godzilla Returns. I believe an A tier is appropriate. So, I'm actually an S tier. Just like the first 1954 Godzilla films, the first 1954 Godzilla film, Godzilla Returns, I believe 1984, Godzilla was portrayed as a villain yet again, and I like that. That paired with his new design, him being bigger, was definitely a good look. So Godzilla vs. Biollante. I know that a lot of people don't like this, but for me it was A tier. All these Godzilla vs. another kaiju films are roughly equivalent. Godzilla vs. Biollante. Although many people believe that Biollante is weak, Biollante is, in my opinion, Biollante was a good adversary. It's a very unique creature, and I believe it just enriches Godzilla's roster of villains. All these King Ghidorah films are roughly equivalent. Well, in my opinion. This is Godzilla vs. Mothra, I believe. Yep, so every iteration they just have different Godzilla designs. So Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. I'll place an A tier. due to this one sole reason. In this film, Mechagodzilla is portrayed as a villain, obviously. Godzilla is portrayed as a protagonist. However, Mechagodzilla is built by humans in this film. And I don't like that. The fact that humans are capable of building a machine capable of destroying Godzilla indicates that humanity has the power to destroy Godzilla. I don't like that concept. I mean, it does make Godzilla look very weak, and it's not good. Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, Godzilla vs. Kaiju films is all roughly equivalent. Godzilla vs. Destroyer. I really like the aggregate forms. They were terrifying. I'll place it above the rest. Now, Godzilla TriStar. I believe it's a nice scientific depiction of the character. However, the film itself wasn't very good. Godzilla died to a few airstrikes. Godzilla is meant to be an unstoppable force. D tier. Godzilla 2000, I believe. I believe the main antagonist is the UFO and Orga. Like I've stated before, all these films are roughly equivalent, with the exception that the main antagonist is different. Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. Megaguirus was very underwhelming for me. B tier. She's literally just like an amalgamation of Mega and Nula. Essentially, Megaguirus is just a bunch of giant dragonflies fused together. That doesn't seem that powerful, does it? GMK, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack, I believe. Godzilla is viewed as the antagonist. However, whilst watching the film, I did want him to beat Ghidorah, so the tone was definitely less dark, although GMK Godzilla's origins are very dark, being comprised of the spirits of those fallen in World War II. And that's a very good concept, Godzilla x Kiryu. Most Godzilla films are pretty good. The sole reason that placing all these Mechagodzilla films below is because humans built the Mechagodzilla. It really just downgrades the seriousness of that kaiju. In the first Mechagodzilla films, Mechagodzilla is built by aliens that live in black holes. But in these films, they're built by humans. Not only do they downgrade the quality of Mechagodzilla, they also kind of make Godzilla look weak. And actually, I think B tier is too harsh for them, so A tier. The second Godzilla vs. Kiryu film, these two are just roughly the same in my opinion. The only difference is that in this film, Kiryu gets slightly upgraded. Final Wars. There was a huge roster of kaiju, but they all died in a single hit. The only good fight was between Godzilla and Kaiser Ghidorah, which was underwhelming considering that Godzilla was already weakened by a previous fight. And also, humans had to assist him at defeating Kaiser Ghidorah. Also, I'm not a fan of Final Wars Godzilla's design. Final Wars design, in my opinion, he looks too Felid-like. Looks too much like a cat, and I don't like that. Makes Godzilla look weak. I'm getting off topic here. Traded the quality for quantity, essentially. B tier. Godzilla 2014. It was a nice dark tone, very Americanized version of Godzilla. It rebooted the series towards the Monsterverse, etc., etc. I mean, it was pretty good. Yes, the tone was certainly darker than the other Monsterverse movies. The villains, they actually seem like a threat, shutting down electricity with the EMP pulse, breeding in immense numbers. Yeah, it was certainly good. Also, Godzilla seemed more like an anti-hero. He destroys the kaiju, the antagonistic kaiju, the Mutos, who only exist to harm other creatures. But at the same time, Godzilla destroys 3 entire cities. Yeah, I like that aspect. I don't like it when Godzilla is just a straight-up protagonist. It makes the character seem more lighthearted. Carrying on, Shin Godzilla. For me, it was an S tier. This guy, his design is terrifying. His purpose, to feed on all the radiation on planet Earth and evolved to be the perfect life form. That was a very good concept as well. Also, I liked how he evolved, constantly adapting to his surroundings and opponents. So overall, pretty good. Also, the way they defeated Shin Godzilla was pretty creative, you know, sucking up his radiation. Although Godzilla is viewed as like a protagonist in these films, they're considerably darker than the rest. You know that scene, like, when Ghidorah sprays a smog over people and they all start melting? Yeah, I really like that. That made Ghidorah look like a disgusting monster. The Godzilla anime series, please C tier. The first film gave good insight about what Godzilla did to humanity. So he's an antagonist. Also, Godzilla Filius, you know, dies, and Godzilla Earth appears. I really despise how Godzilla Filius dies. The problem I have with these films is that most of the time it's just boring ass monologue. Not very good. Incredibly tedious. Godzilla 2019, pretty good. Godzilla turning thermonuclear mode. That was a very refreshing look. Plot itself is questionable. The characters, the human characters, are incredibly bad. So Godzilla vs. Kong. This is an interesting one. So, rank it by itself. You know, with Mechagodzilla being the final adversary, him being built by humans, all that stuff. I'll place Godzilla vs. Kong around here. The action is certainly good. The human characters some of them are questionable. Overall, it was pretty good. However, all these other films, although they're like Godzilla vs. another kaiju, we all expected Godzilla to win. All we wanted to see was a good fight for Godzilla vs. Kong. I was actually cheering for Godzilla in this film. So, the first time I watched it, I'm talking about. So, there's a lot of hype for this. There's a lot of tension. This movie sort of eased the tension. Kong fans are simply biased. Getting off topic, so Godzilla vs. Kong will be hype. It will be an S tier. I had so much fun watching Godzilla Singular Point. I love his design. I love all the monsters' designs. I like how creative, like, all that red mist sort of thing is. So, I'll put it in C tier. Above the Godzilla Earth series. Godzilla Singular Point, it was boring like these. There's a lot of talk about physics. So you have to understand the physics. I mean, I understood a little bit of quantum physics, so I could watch it. I was able to. However, my friend was unable to. Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. I haven't actually watched it, but according to my friends, it isn't very good. B tier. -1. S tier. Best Godzilla film of all time. So the tone was incredibly dark. The first time we see Godzilla, he's in his Gojira-saurus form. He was still terrifying in that lesser version of himself. He threw humans around without consuming their flesh, so he's just essentially like pure evil. He destroyed an entire outpost, so he was terrifying. He was a terrifying monster. The second glimpse, it was when America starts being an ass and does nuclear testing and shit. Godzilla becomes more highly evolved. No longer theropod dinosaur stunts, but more humanoid stunts. It was terrifying, to say the least. We didn't see much of him, but every time we saw him, he did his job perfectly. Not only that, -1's plot was incredibly good. You know, the character getting a bit of character development, and Godzilla pairing time and time to destroy stuff. The cinematography was good. Although this Godzilla was 50 meters tall, I believe, he looked massive, because it was seen from a human perspective, unlike these other Monsterverse films. The action was good as well. So overall, it's the perfect Godzilla film. -1, I recommend it to you. Such a good film. Now, GXK. I recently watched it. GXK is a very interesting case. The plot was very questionable. The pacing was weird. Some scenes... The movie's kind of dumb sometimes. So, you know that time when Kong gets frostbite? In the film, his hand freezing, and then like conveniently the Beast Club was like 700 meters away from him. That just makes no sense at all. The movie doesn't explain itself. But other than that, the action was incredibly good. Like, my favorite scene was when Kong used Suko as a weapon. That was my favorite scene. Along with the Kong and Godzilla Brawlhalla combo. That one was pretty funny as well. So GXK, very light-hearted. Godzilla seen as protagonist, B tier. Because other than the action, the rest isn't looking too good. This is my Godzilla movie tier list. If you guys disagree with me, comment down below. And please subscribe